our first internal empire that we are covering together. I'm going to drop this out so you can see me. Hey, everyone. I can see everyone's faces now. So with our heart set, I want you to write in the comments what comes to mind when you think of heart set. Drop in the comments whatever comes up for you. Loving the hellos: Tessa, Jackie, Sam, Tessa, Elise, Amanda, Adriana, Alana, Gregoria, everyone. Self-love. Yes, love that. Love, loving, giving, forgiveness, feelings, love, center yourself, self-love, love in life. Amazing. The epic center. Yes. I'm stealing that. That sounds that's a really good way of describing it too. Warmth and openness. Yes. Love it. Love all of that. And here's the thing, all of those, yes. I don't think we have like a certain description for it where it's like, this is what it is. It's all those feelings. Whatever it feels like for you, think of that heart space. You know, I had truth, love, gratitude, relationships, passion, joy. Now, all of these things are incredible. And imagine if we could access all that power of our heart. And if we look at it from a chakra stand of view or standpoint, the Anahata chakra is our heart chakra. It's unconditional love, compassion, and joy. It's the source of deep and profound truths that cannot be expressed in words. It's those feelings. And it's also the bridge between the upper and the lower chakras, which between integrating and manifesting with the spiritual world. So if you have an imbalance in your heart chakra or in your heart, when we're talking about heart set, it can result in, what do you think? If we have a broken heart, if we're not feeling full within our heart, if we're not feeling that love for ourselves, what comes up for you, or what feelings come up for you? Drop them in the comments. I know for me, it was like the inability to give or receive love. Emptiness, unhinged. Yeah. Lonely, unloved, closed off. Yeah. And that's the thing. At one stage or another, we've felt this. Hands up, who has felt a broken heart at one point? Yeah. Some of you got two hands up, two hearts. Who's felt like they've felt disconnected from their heart and from themselves and haven't loved themselves at one point in their life? Yeah. And this is the thing, is that it's happens in life, and that is part of our experience, but it's also a thing that we can work on and we can bring back into balance. When it's imbalanced, you know, we suffer with things such as codependence, unworthiness, inability to trust ourselves or others. We start to manipulate our behaviors in certain ways, but that's okay, because we're here learning about heart set. How can we, I guess, when you've got think of your heart like a bucket, and as much as you put so much in there, if you've got so many holes in there and we don't kind of line them with some self-love and those self-love band-aids with little minions on them, to make that whole again, we're going to try and receive all this love, and maybe in external ways, through likes, through money, through validation. It's just going to leak through. And when we talk about filling our cup, whether that's our cup of self-love, we want to fill it up so it's overflowing, so we can give to others. Because if we give so much of ourselves to others and we have none for ourselves, we feel that level of unworthiness, that emptiness. So when we're in healthy alignment and have a full heart, we're surrounded by love, compassion, joy. We feel connected to everyone and everything around us. So before we get stuck into a very, very special session with Adriana, I want us to do something very, very special, and something that I have done with very few people, but it is such a great process that I use, called heart math, to take us from a place of incoherence to coherence with our heart. So what I want everyone to do is close your eyes again, put both hands over your heart. So both hands over the heart, closing down your eyes. And I want you to imagine and think back to a moment where you felt the most love. It might be a hug with a family member or a partner or a child or a friend. It could be a moment in your life, in your past. It could be right now. I want you to pinpoint that moment of where you felt the most love. I want you to take note of how it felt. I want you to take note of what you were thinking. What it felt like to feel unconditional love in that moment. And I want you to notice, did your heart start beating faster or did it slow down while your hands over your heart? As you still remember that moment and stay paused in that moment of so much love. I want you to imagine what your facial expression was like. Were you smiling? Were you crying because you felt so much love? I want you to sit with that for a moment. And just notice how it feels. Take notice of how your heartbeat feels in your chest. Heart that is full of love, worthiness, and peace. Notice your shoulders start to drop, your jaw unclench, a smile come on your face, your whole body relaxing, being surrounded by this big bubble of just love. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back to the screen. What a beautiful little moment to just connect to your heart, to feel your heartbeat, the thing that's beating all day, every day for you, not because of anything else other than because you exist, because you are worthy, and because you deserve to have that thing inside you, keeping you alive, full of so much love that we can access and that we can bring into our life. And for so long, we've been told to shut it off. We've been either hurt or felt so disconnected from it. And just in that moment, you created coherence. You connected back to it. And I want you to drop in the comments, have you ever sat there and just felt your heartbeat? And if not that, how did it feel right then to connect back to yourself and your heart? Yeah, pretty powerful. So, a great introduction to what we're going to be talking about next with mindset coach and intuitive reader, Adriana Andelkovic, one of my very good friends, an incredible speaker. If you've done the program, which a lot of you have, she comes on and talks about something that she's going to talk about more today, but also more in depth and another perspective on it as well. It's an important part that I feel of bringing that heart set back to that place of fullness and releasing any of those emotions that we've been holding on to. So I would love to introduce Adriana Andelkovic to the virtual stage. And if she can unmute, there we go. I'm going to bring her on and we're going to, okay, that's not working, but all good. Adriana, welcome. Everyone give some spirit hands for Adriana.
Yay! I'm going to go back to gallery view so I can see all your beautiful faces. Hi guys, thank you Firstly, thank you all for being here, and thank you to G and Carlo for hosting this beautiful event. We're all so blessed to be spending this time here, and I know they've put together such amazingness. So I'm so grateful to be one of the people sharing this deliciousness with you. Most of you have probably heard me speak before, and so you probably know a bit of my work and how I roll. But for those of you who haven't, hello. And what, my chair is really squeaky, sorry. For those of you who feel comfortable as I'm sharing to pop your video on, or maybe you want to pop your video off at some points, all good. But as you feel more comfortable, sharing at points, asking any questions as we go, there will be lots of time to kind of chat and go through some stuff as well. So keeping that in mind too for when you feel obviously safe and ready. As Carlo mentioned, I have spoken and shared this with most of you. So I have excitingly put together a few different little, I guess, perspectives and different ways we can go about certain things. And I have also left plenty of time to do the work right now. So what I love about that is that it's one thing to go away and do it, and it's this whole other beautiful process to get this space in a container like this to actually be doing the work. So I'm very excited for that too. I work super intuitively, however, I do have notes, so I remember things. And we will go through them and we will see how they go. And I'm just so excited for you guys. I only ask for two things. One is allowing yourself the space to be as vulnerable as you can in this space, and allowing yourself to go as deep as feels safe and good to you. And the other one is so cute. The other one is to just be super present with whatever is coming up. If it feels icky, if it feels exciting, whatever is coming up for you, just be with it. And we'll go through that more as well. So sounds good? Sounding pretty good? Yeah. Fabulous. I love it. Awesome. So I'm going to start with something a little different. I want to start with allowing yourself to just, as we've already kind of tapped into our heart space, just kind of having a little check-in in that space, or like a little scan in that space. So a really easy way I do this, and something I've been practicing more and more, is actually talking to the parts in our body and asking it what's still in there. So I did the same thing before this call, and I was like, what else could I let go of, and what else could I check in with? So you can do it right now as we speak, and you can also practice this at any time. So you might want to shut your eyes, keep them open, it's totally fine, and just placing one or both of your hands on your heart space and feeling into it, and kind of just checking in, either mentally or physically, however it is, and having a look and seeing, is there anything stuck in there? Maybe there is an emotion, maybe there is a memory, maybe there is just something you're like, oh, I didn't even know I was holding on to that. And I just want you to kind of notice it, just see what's going on, give it a little bit of a check-in, and then see if you can just bring it to the light and let it go. See if you can ask it any questions. What are you trying to show me? Maybe it's, what is this feeling in regards to? Is it asking it if it's a memory? And you should really easily be able to see it or feel it kind of come up. And we can really easily bring things to the light, because when things come to the light, they transmute instantly. And we can let it go. However, sometimes we need a little bit more intervention, and that's what today's about. So give yourself a big thank you for being here and coming back when you're ready. The importance of this is a few things. One is just to start noticing what we're still holding. So we can do this anywhere in our body. And I think some of the other beautiful people are speaking about this over this weekend. Are we holding it in our hips, in our heart? I hold a lot in my shoulders. And what does that mean? And what are we holding in there? And sometimes it's as simple as, which I'm going to go into more today, as bringing it to the light and letting it go. And then sometimes we need more tools or steps or little bits of intervention to help us fully move that. And that's what I'm going to go into today. Make sense? Sounds like fun? Hell yes, let's do this. Okay, what is forgiveness? So one day, I'd been teaching this for a while, and one day I was like, I'm going to Google what actually forgiveness means. And I was looking at all these different kinds of, I guess, statements, and I found one that I really, really loved, really, really resonated with me. And it was that forgiveness is a conscious, deliberate decision to release feelings of resentment. Not forgetting or excusing, but being free from it. Not forgetting or excusing, but being free from it. And I love that it says at the beginning, a conscious and deliberate reason. And my favorite word ever, resentment, that we're going to look into a little bit today too. And Charlie said, this is my favorite topic ever. Charlie, you've heard it that many times and you're still going to get lots out of it. So that's what it's all about. So that is what forgiveness is. But what do we need from today? We need compassion. I was looking into this word too. I've been very curious lately. And compassion is, we hear it a lot. We see it written in lots of places. Have compassion for yourself, compassion for this. Can someone write what that meaning is in the chat? Yes, I might even write it later, Nadia, while you guys are working on something. So compassion is simply to be with and to be honest company. And why I loved this kind of example of what compassion is. Compassion is to just simply be with. So what does that mean? It means that when stuff arises today, we're not just simply being like, oh, I'm going to be compassionate and kind towards it, because it can be a little like almost like fluffy, and like, how do we actually do that? So sitting with it is actually just to be with it and be like, I feel that there. It's uncomfortable or exciting or a little numb, and that's okay. And to really be with it. Carlos said, a feeling of deep sympathy and sorrow for one who is stricken by misfortune, accompanied by a strong desire to feel alleviated, to alleviate the suffering. I love that. Delicious. The importance of our shadow side. So what's really, really beautiful in this place of our heart is, I mean, everything, because it is the absolute answer to everything, all of life's wonders and everything in between. But what's really, really beautiful is when we can bring our shadow to the surface and see it and hold it, and again, transmute it into the light. Seeing our shadow self and transmuting that is what heals the earth, is what changes timelines, is what, completely brings our beautiful consciousness to the light. But this process, and we're seeing this a lot in the world this year, right? It's a very personal process. It is actually about each individual person working through what is hidden within us and held within us and moving through that. And this isn't just something we do once. And the beauty of you guys hearing this again is this is a practice we get to bring through our whole lives. And that's what's so beautiful about this, because things are coming up all the time. And then we get to keep bringing them up and bringing them to the light. And in that, we get to heal the earth. We get to become one, true oneness. And one of my favorites is that this process and many others are a gateway to our intuition. And so many people ask me, how did you become psychic, or how did you tap into your intuition? And it was, I believe, for me, a really big process of working through all my shit. I always call it clearing my shit. Eloquent, right? And literally clearing it to create space to hear the whisper in my heart, to understand the difference between, fear and love, to understand the difference between my heart and my head is this process and so many others. I was watching a doco the other night and it was called The Power of the Heart. And it was really funny timing. We just like put it on and I'm listening to it and I was like, wow, this is so relevant to what I'm talking about on Saturday. And it was literally about these different examples in the world, right? Where people were in really, really, really difficult times. And a lot of you have heard my story once or more. But this particular story I found really, really beautiful. I actually just cried through the whole thing, but it was about, I won't say all of it because you guys can watch it if you want, but it was a really great example of when our heart is racing, when we are in fear, when we are angry, how do we come back to what our heart is sharing with us to do? And how do we come back to that place of love and forgiveness? So it was an example of this woman, and she was facing extreme genocide of her tribe. And millions of people were murdered in this. And she was, you may have heard the story before, she was trapped in a small bathroom with 7 other women and 1 child. And they were trapped in there for what was meant to be 3 days and turned out to be 3 whole months. And the genocide went on. They stayed in the bathroom, and eventually 3 months later they were allowed out. And what was really interesting is about halfway she came to this point of being like, when I feel anger, which we know, I feel my body hurt and I get pains, but when I start thinking of love, even for these people who are murdering her entire family, her entire tribe, right? I feel better. I feel light. I feel whole. My body doesn't hurt. If that's not a fucking miracle, I don't know what is. We are so freaking powerful. It blows my mind. It like gives me the goosebumps. So they got out and she came out and everyone was like, this is crazy. Like, how are you wanting to forgive these people? All the goosebumps, Amanda, yes. How are you wanting to forgive these people? How are you happy? Why are you smiling? Your mum died, your brother, your siblings, your school friends. And she said, I just want to be free. And she goes to the jail where the guy who murdered her dad and her brother, I believe, he murdered them together. And she sat at the table and the prison guard sits her down and says, you can do whatever you want, and hands her a small, like an axe, a machete style thing. She sits down in front of the guy sits in front of her. She pops the knife on the table. She leans in, she looks at him and she says, I forgive you. And he looks at her and he's starting to cry, and they're like reenacted the scene. And the prison guard, who was also, his family was murdered in the genocide, grabs the prison guard, takes him out, starts yelling at this woman and says, how dare you forgive him? How dare you forgive him? And I looked at that and I thought, 2 days before I share this with you guys, if she can find that in the place of her heart to be free and to look at him with love and compassion and that hurt little boy inside of him, I feel like today we can release anything we choose. And that's pretty fucking special. Because you get to move forward with your life and you get to live from your heart and you get to be free. And if we believe in the true essence of oneness, when I look at you and you are free, I am free. When I forgive you, I forgive myself. That's just how it works. And once we understand this concept of oneness, not as just a word, but on this deep level, that is when we all get to be free. And I don't know about you guys, but that sounds pretty fucking special. So, yay! Pop me a little, maybe a love heart or how you're feeling in the comments. And a whoop from Carlo. I would love to hear freedom. Yes, I love that. Perfect. All right. When I forgive you, I am free. Yes, exactly. It's beautiful, guys. I love hearing from you all. So, clear that shit. Yeah, the best quote ever, right, Delia? I love it. Yeah, beautiful, guys. I'm so glad. All right, let's look at what's next. So, as we move through this together and we start drawing it back to the experiences in our own lives, like I said, I do want to give us time to go through that together today, but really looking at the meaning we gave to something. So this is something I touch on a little bit, but I haven't touched on it loads with you guys. So I really, really wanted to come back to what is the meaning I gave to that situation? It's a really great question to ask. So say your mum lets you down and she doesn't come over and do what she said she's going to do. I don't know. And you look at the scenario and then you start to ask, what is the meaning I gave to that? She doesn't love me. She loves my other sibling more than me. You know, blah, 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 blah. And this starts to show us where are our wounds and what is it that we truly need to start to move through. What is the story we're telling ourselves and where are we attaching to that? What lens do I have on when I'm looking at the world? And what are the patterns I'm creating from this? And these are just some stuff to start prompting deeper kind of thought around what's happening in our world. A really interesting example that's a little bit more recent for me, and you guys know a lot about, you know, how my past and the story I've shared with you guys, but I wanted to share more recent thing that the meaning I gave to things and the way I couldn't open from my heart space truly affected my allowance of love in a relationship. And I'm very lucky, and I know my boyfriend won't mind me saying this, that he is super patient, and probably the most grounded person that I've ever met in the whole world. And he was able to hold me in that space lovingly. But what happens is we open up this space of our heart, and you might feel yourself do this, and we build different things around it. So my point is, let's just notice, what do you build? So my example is that every time my heart opens to love, and every time I opened my heart to falling in love with him, I felt it just as quickly contract. Mine actually shuts like a clam. And it was so interesting. And one day I was just like, I'm just going to become the observer of what I do through this process. So I observed it. And when you observe it, you can literally start to see these crazy visuals of what your heart space does. So for a lot of clients, I see a shield. So it's armor. Some people, it's a wall that goes zip, wall of China, Alice says. Alice, sorry, I have. And exactly right. So what are we building? Is it a cage that goes over? Noticing these visuals around what happens in our heart space is really, really interesting. I'm a very visual person, as are a lot of people in this kind of space and world, so to speak. And then we can start to see, okay, I'm seeing that what I do, I'm seeing the meaning I give, I'm seeing my patterns. What am I still holding on to? Who have I still not forgave for hurting me, for betraying my trust, whatever it is in your world? Where am I still trying to control? The heart doesn't control, the heart allows. And where am I still repeating these patterns in this current scenario? And love and relationships is a great one. You know, it's our biggest test on this, almost in this lifetime. But this isn't just about romantic love and relationships. It's, of course, to self, to your parents, to your siblings, to your friends, maybe people you work with. And how do we keep coming, you know, from that place And it's not about getting rid of our wall of China immediately or stopping the clan from shutting totally. It's 1%. So every time I felt my heart open and then go, oh God, I don't want to do this, I took a breath. In that breath is where we heal. It is a fact of life. So as I felt that, it was breathing into that space, letting it shut 2% and leaving it there. So, the process of forgiveness. Fun times. I'm going to go over the template again to remind you guys, and then I'm going to go over a few little extra bits and pieces. Feeling good? Hanging in there? Yeah. I can't see your faces, so I'm like, yeah. Amazing. And I promise you will get lots of space and time soon as well. So the process of forgiveness. Most of you guys have heard this, but I'm going to recap the kinds of process and the template. And then I'm going to go through a few extra little maybe like tips and things that you can do that might support you. But there's one thing I really wanted to remind you of. When I teach this concept in the form of a letter, right, it's more about learning the process. But now in my life, right, if something happens and I'm holding on to it, I don't need to go through the whole letter writing process all the time. Now it's much quicker. It's almost the concept of the holy instant, right, which I love. It's that we can literally click our fingers and so it is. However, it is because I was able to fully understand the steps I needed to do, so I didn't bypass anything. You would have heard me say this before. We have to go through it. But what's through it to me and through it to you might be two different things, and that's okay. So starting off with, I wrote 8 letters to different people before I really understood the patterns that were coming up in my world. Oh my gosh, I did the same thing. Oh my gosh, I did the same thing. Oh my golly gosh, I did the same fucking thing. So how do we start to realize that? So then when new things happen, we're like, that's what I did. And we can move through much quicker. And it doesn't have to be quick. It doesn't have to be slow. I mean, time is just an illusion anyway, right? So the forgiveness process, a little reminder of how. I want to remind you of the few steps. So we have the story through your own lens. So this is if it happened when you were 5, how did you see it when you were 5? If it happened 6 months ago, how did you see it? Really focusing on how you saw the scenario. How does it feel? Maybe where it is in your body. Where are you carrying it? Does it feel like anger, numbness? So what do you feel? And then, as I always say, my favorite one of all, your expectations. Because we all know we mostly get let down by those. What were you expecting to happen? And how are your expectations not met? Because here's the thing, a lot of this that we've looked at is from our little self, so our childhood. But I also want you to start thinking today about this year. Timely. So really, really reflecting on the recent stuff too. So how are my expectations not met? Then I want you to think or write when you're writing these on how to forgive them. But ultimately, as it always is coming back to that forgiveness of self. How can I forgive myself? And most of the time, they are your mirror, right? So there's your secret, there's your little hint, there's your answer. What you were so angry at in them, what you were so trying to forgive them for is generally what you're trying to move through in yourself or in your shadow self. So it's a great way to look at it. And then we're letting it go. And whatever letting go means to you. So it might be flicking it off you. It might be cutting a cord. It might be aspecting, which we're going to speak about. It could be a range, an array of different things. So it's letting it go. It might be writing the letter and burning it. It might be writing the letter and wetting it and ripping it up. Knowing which element, check in with your body. We are so intuitive. We are so smart. Sometimes I'll write a letter, I'm like, I don't want to burn that. I want to rip it up in tiny pieces and throw it in the bin. And that's okay. I really want to give the power back to you guys that you trust this process whilst having some, let's call it a framework to follow to make this even easier and more powerful for you. And I can assure you, and I can almost promise you, this truly changed my life. And I see this process as such a pinnacle moment. You know, those moments in your life where you're at the fork and you're like, I could go this way, or I could go like all the way this way, or this way forward. And that was one of those. Amanda shared it truly changed mine too. Yeah. And then I'm yet to speak to really anyone who's done this in depth and that hasn't changed the way they live. It hasn't changed their heart space. It hasn't changed the ability to hear their heart, to love someone else. And we're going to talk about all different scenarios too. And I want to remind you that it doesn't matter how big, it doesn't matter how small, because what you are holding on to is relevant to you. I know when my dad passed away, if my friends complained about little things to me, they'd be like, oh, sorry. And I was like, no. Like, all pain is relevant. Because who's to say then someone else could be like, well, I've been something through more painful than losing a parent. All pain is relevant, no matter how big, no matter how small. If you were carrying it, if it changed your energetic state to this, we need to release that. That is yours to release, and you deserve to, because it's all relevant to you and it's different to everybody. So I'm going to have a little pause from speaking. I do have a whole bunch of new points to go through with you, but I wanted to give you guys a little chance to sit with yourselves and to do a little bit of writing. And here's what I want you to write on. I was going to do this later, but I want you to do it now while it's all bubbling in you. I want you to write out your 4 R's, which most of you have heard me speak about before. But I want you to focus on the first R, which is resentment. I want you to feel into what resentment, because a lot of you have done this, but I'm pretty much going to assume we didn't just clear all the resentment from our whole entire lifetime. I don't know about you, but you know, we're all human, right? And I want you to ask yourself, what is still stuck? What resentment am I still holding? And maybe start to inquire about where. And I want you to ask yourself something really interesting. What resentments became stuck or came up for me this year in the last 12 months? Resentment to the world, maybe resentment to a governing body, maybe a resentment towards family, maybe, yeah, great point, G, as well. Maybe it's resentment towards yourself. Maybe you did enough or not enough in the space of this year. And of course, feel free to travel through your whole space and time as well. So asking ourselves and listing this place of our first R, which is resentment. Sounds good. Any questions or anything before we have a little bit of time and my DJ Carlo pops some music on? If you guys want to pop any questions or anything making sense? Sounds good. I'll pop some little reminders and I'll write that definition while you guys are doing that. I'll give you a few minutes. It's pretty lengthy. Got a full moon in that sky. I'm leaving that darkness broken.
blowing smoke rings out my mind. Calling on all that's wild. Pages have been turned. Gonna reach into my fire. Gonna let that old way burn. I ain't afraid of shining. I ain't afraid of love. I'm gonna stop denying. This time I won't run. Oh. It's all in perfect time. I'm crushing all my doubt. Step into warrior status. All things come back around. I'm pulling back my arrow. I'm shooting for the soul. Standing strong like mountain. I'm coming home. Yeah. I ain't afraid of shining. I ain't afraid of love. I'm gonna stop denying. This time I won't run. Woo. I ain't afraid of shining. I ain't afraid of love. I'm gonna stop denying. And this time I won't run. I ain't afraid of shining. I ain't afraid of love. I'm gonna stop denying. This time I won't run.
Alrighty, guys. So there is probably plenty coming up and you're still writing away. So either keep having a scribble or you can continue it after. These lists are a really easy and great way to show us, okay, this is what I'm holding on to. This is what I can release quickly, or this is what I can go away and write my forgiveness letter on. So you can go away after this, tonight or tomorrow, and start to write the forgiveness letters to these bigger pieces, or maybe they're the smaller ones. It's up to you, it's fine. And using that template that we spoke about earlier, story, feel, expectation, them, self, letting it go, and writing this letter. The other benefit of these lists is we can literally write out all the resentment we're holding. And you can do a little exercise with that and literally just crossing out each one and stating out loud and declaring, I let go, I let go, I let go, I let go. Scrunching it up, throwing it out. Again, this is all about these little tools along the way that are allowing us to connect with this process and see what it is without judgment, without being like, if I look at all the things, I'll have to spend years letting all of this go. Because it's not the truth. But Adriana, what are the other R's? Great question you ask. Thank you. Okay, no worries. So the 4 R's are resentment, which most is going to sit in this place. But I want you now to consider the other 3. So 1 is regret. And we all know, of course, that, you know, there's nothing truly to regret, as, you know, everything led us perfectly to where we are right now. For me, there is this one memory before my dad passed, and he asked me to watch a movie with him. And I said, no, I was busy. And whilst I understand that that was perfectly meant to happen in that way, it's one thing I wish I did differently out of the whole thing. It's pretty much my only regret my whole entire life. Because everything else, I see it, I understand that. But it was so simple. And I know it happened exactly as it was meant to, of course. So regrets can be big and small, and it doesn't mean that we don't understand that it was, you know, happening perfectly as it was meant to. The other one is revenge. This one's an interesting one. People are like, revenge? I never sought out revenge. Naughty. But the thing is, sometimes we have. Sometimes spitefully, unknowingly, accidentally even, we've done something a little vengeful. So looking at the word revenge. And the third one is rejection. Where were you rejected, and where are we still holding on to that rejection? So I'm going to give you guys another few minutes. I've joined these ones together because they're generally not as long. So regret, revenge, rejection. I'm going to pop everything you've probably noticed in the comments as well, so you can always go back to it. And again, I just want you to start listing it out in your lifetime, and then really bringing it back to this year or the last 12 months, 6 to 12 months. Have fun. I'll be back in a minute. DJ Carlo, thank you so much.
Up and down it goes like a great wave across my own home. All the questions of the mind trying to find a way to show that I got darkness, I got light, I got everything in between. Don't deny any side, I don't cut branches off my tree. Great storm clouds holding rain, it's part of nature to hold a bit of pain. All in all, that rain falls and then we watch nothing go. Watching nothing go. Feelings coming, feelings leaving, that is just the way it goes. Feelings coming, feelings leaving, that is just the way it goes. Had to surrender to the mystery I often never know. Oh, treat it like a way to treat it like a never-ending day. watch a new thing grow. Watch a new thing grow. Watch a new thing grow. Great storm clouds holding rain. It's part of nature to hold a bit of pain. Great storm clouds holding rain. It's part of nature to hold a bit of pain. Great storm clouds.
Welcome back, honeys. So I would love everyone to write in the chat either how they are feeling or something that came up for them. Maybe it's something you let go of, maybe it was an emotion, can be just a few words. Carlo, so many new things as always. How interesting. Yes, so many little things hiding in the creases and the crevices of ourselves. Amanda shared, I'm feeling really emotional, sadness actually, but also keen to explore. That's perfect. That's okay. They're all welcome. These are the things that don't get airtime. Tessa shared, very emotional, same as Amanda. That's beautiful. Because through this, we get to look around, and we've started on a really deep note today, you know, and then we get to bring it to the light and we get to be free. And that's why I wanted you guys to get to write these out right now in real time together while we're all holding space for each other. Two really beautiful lines in this share, in that song that I wanted to share. So both of the songs were by Trevor Hall. If you know him, I'm obsessed, clearly. One in the first song was, I'm not afraid of shining. I'm not afraid of love. This time I won't run. The song's called Open Doors. And why I love that line is it's so much of what we're looking at today. Allowing that space in our heart space again so we can live more beautiful, full, impactful, beautiful lives. And then we can shower that upon everyone we meet. And in the second song we played, it said the line, I don't deny any side. I don't cut branches off my trees. And that line, first time I heard it, I just cried because it's this really beautiful concept of not denying any parts of self. And this is really what we're leaning into today. Elise shared, I've realized how much work I've done to release, but I still have things that just pop in. Absolutely. I feel that too. Sam, vulnerable, Alana shared feeling heavy. Amazing. What was the name of the second song? It is Monsoon Cloud. I'm going to write them. Music is life. It really got me. Absolutely. So his whole album's amazing, but you know, they were the two songs I felt were really, really fitting. I just popped them in the chat for everyone. Okay, so while we're in this space and things have come up, I wanted to give people a little bit of time to share before I moved into some other kind of points and things that we can use. So a few people shared that lots had come up and they're feeling emotional. Is there anyone who's feeling like it's their time to have a little bit of a chat and air it out and see what's coming up? Maybe it's something that you want to move through. Maybe it's something that you just don't understand how to move through. Maybe it's just something you noticed that came up. If it is you, come turn your video off and pop your hand up. It's a great chance to just to chat and see how we can go deeper. I believe in you all. I believe in one human. I believe in all of you anyway. Too scary? Otherwise, I'm just going to keep speaking. I don't mind. I got plenty of notes. I always struggle with this, Alana. Would you like some time, Alana? Too scary right now, Amanda. That's okay, guys. It's big stuff, right? And it's personal stuff too. And this is why I really wanted to give you guys time to write and feel while we're in this. Yeah, that's why that this time is so important. And that's why we really wanted to come back to ourselves. Alana, I think your video your mic she's here. Alana.
I'm in my pajamas still, so like just
It's more than okay. I should have stayed in my pajamas. How are you feeling?
yeah, I don't know. Every time we do this, I literally, it's just pain in my heart space. I never know exactly what it is, where it's from. Is it like I went down resentment towards myself for like not doing enough for me?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if that's it as well. Like it's like I don't know clarity, I guess, of things. It's like what is like, is it a lot of things? Is it one thing? Yeah.
And when you ask it, right, when you ask that pain in your heart what it is, what does it whisper back to you? What does it say?
Well, when you ask at the start, you like hold your heart and ask, like bring it to the light. And I asked, you know, what is this pain? Is it a memory? It then went away. So
Okay.
it didn't really help.
That's okay. So maybe it's not
My
a memory.
logical mind takes over when I start to try and like tap in too deeply. Like I still have a really hard time going from like that, like unconscious, like tapped in place.
Who else can relate to that? Who else struggles with that? I can totally relate to that too. Yeah. Definitely not alone in that one, Alana. Jackie said me as well. And what happens is our trauma response turns on and it's like, this is too scary, too hard. I don't want to do this. So what I always like to do is lean in just 1% more, just that little lean, and you said that it kind of feels like resentment towards yourself. If you were to say what for, what would you say?
I guess like one of my things was like, I didn't write it down at the start because I was a bit busy, but I'd written down like filling up my cup because this year I was wanting to help others, but I've noticed over the last month that I just drained myself in the end instead because I wasn't fully ready. And for whatever I'm holding on to, which like, that's what I mean. I feel emotional, I get emotional, but to try and pinpoint that emotion, I never can.
What emotion are you feeling?
Sadness, I think.
And when was a time in your life, and I obviously know a little bit about you, Alana, but when was a time in your life where you first felt this feeling towards resentment towards yourself and not giving back to you and always being there for other people?
There's a few times, like when I was a teenager, I used to give so much to like my ex, my mom, like did everything for everyone else. And then also kind of the same thing, like when we like lost the house and I had to take over as like the caregiver. And then it was just like, making sure everyone else was safe and just crying myself to sleep most days because I didn't know what to do. And I think I'm in that kind of same space now where it's like, it's different, I'm safe, but I still don't know what path I'm taking now.
Do you feel angry at yourself for repeating the pattern in some type of way?
Yeah, 100%.
Do you feel like that could be part of what this is that keeps coming up that you can't pinpoint?
Possibly. I did write it as my regret that I regret not completing or pushing myself to things. Literally all my R's were all for me.
That's okay. That's beautiful.
Yeah, like I think Like I guess like I suppose resentment, anger, sadness. I guess it's repeating those patterns of. I get so far, and like Carla knows this really well. I get so far, and I get to like that tipping point, and then I back off. Like literally every time, and it's literally where I was at, where it was like I was doing these things, and I was ready to like start in my business or whatever it was, or start my YouTube channel, and then whoop, see you later, back in the turtle shell.
And what comes up when that happens? What's that scary kind of bear gremlin saying to you?
You can't do this. You won't push through the hard times because you never have. You've always retreated. Like, a lot of it was just, like, it's always the whole, you're not good enough. Like, that's all I can think of in my head. It's like I say to myself, like, I am worthy. I can do this. I know I'm capable of doing it. Like, my logical mind goes, you're capable. You got this. You've been doing it anyway. You know you've got value to give to people. But my, I suppose, conditioning patterns, if you want to call them, say, no, you can't. No, you don't.
Yeah. What role do you feel like you're playing out? What role from your past or your current life? What role is playing out here?
Thanks, Amanda. I'm like I've got the cold sweats because I'm so nervous.
You're doing great.
What role am I playing out? I feel like I'm playing out a bit of the victim role.
Okay.
Currently. Like, it's okay. You don't need to do that. You've gone and done all these things so far. You know, it's okay to keep yourself safe. You don't want to step out too far and like fail or something, even though I've never technically, like, you don't fail, you just learn.
Okay.
But I think I want it's the poor me, like, it's okay. You've gone this far. You know, like, it's okay. This far, kind of.
Yeah. So I kind of just want to give you this like different kind of view on these patterns, right? Have you ever aspected before?
No, we spoke about it last time, and it's one of those things that I'm just like, oh, I'll do it eventually, and then it never happens.
Cool. So my homework, and everyone's going to give you this homework together as a collective, is to aspect. I'm going to teach you all how to do it. It was part of what I was going to just explain to you. This is perfect. Is that the roles that we're playing in this scenario, in these scenarios, because what's interesting, and Alana's so beautifully being my guinea pig to share with everybody, is that what's happening underneath for Alana is all these emotions, sadness, anger, resentment to herself, this pattern of like, fuck, I've done this time and time and time again. I'm tired of this. So we dig into our past. We do this. We self-sabotage. Sometimes when we stop and sit with ourselves and be like, there's a role I'm playing here that's stopping me from coming from my heart space. And I need to realize how to move that role and stop playing in that role. And Alana shared her role as the victim. And maybe as you're listening to Alana speak, think of the role you might be playing in some of those. For me, I played the manipulator for a long time, really accidentally, obviously not on purpose. So just leaning into it could be the people pleaser. There's so many variables of what it could be. Alana, I'll get you to quickly come back for a sec, if that's all right. When you're hearing all of this, how are you feeling? What's coming up for you now that we're going through this together?
A little bit more calm.
Yeah. What makes you feel more calm?
Because I'm so ready to fucking let go of this shit. Like,
yeah.
I have a bit of blankness though too. I guess it's like one of those things where the actual mind's just like, no, you can just sit here and be blank for a bit. But
push you one little centimeter more. If you could share one thing you're hearing or feeling or seeing with us, what would that be?
Can you repeat that again?
Yeah. If you could lean into one other thing around this scenario, around this situation that you're either seeing visually, hearing, feeling in your body that's giving you more insight that maybe you're pretending not to see, hear, or feel, big or small, what would that be? If you could just see something, past, present, future.
In regards to like this scenario of resentment of holding towards myself and things like that.
Yeah. It could be nothing right now, and that's okay. It could still be blank, but it's probably something to ponder on, because there's generally something playing out in the movie of our minds or in our body that we're like, no, I didn't hear that, I didn't see that. But we actually did, if we can just catch it really, really quickly and early.
Sometimes it will happen when someone else is speaking and then it will come to me. But when I tend to get put on the spot, it's like, unless it gets reworded a few times, sometimes it takes me a while to tap in.
Yeah, that's cool. That's good. It's good you're noticing this stuff, right? So you can just start jotting things down more and more, like as we speak. But my homework, all our homework for Alana is, and for everybody, which I'm going to explain, is looking at the aspecting with the victim, the role of the victim, and really looking at when we go to be like the YouTube channel or this or that, again, it's like everybody can do. How do we go from wanting to start the YouTube, do the things, not starting at all and hiding away? How do we just step down to the middle, or maybe 2 steps down? Actually taking a breath. That's a bit scary. That was too far out of the comfort zone. I'm going to take 3 steps down. I'm going to just open the YouTube channel but not post anything. I don't know. So that's something else I want you to think about, Alana, and everybody else. Thank you so much, Alana, for sharing and being so brave and sharing that with us. And glad you're feeling a little calmer and you're going to do this. It's going to be great. Thank you. Okay, now that Alana broke that for us, is there one more person who would like to? It's no pressure, of course, but sometimes when someone else shares and someone's like, no, I want to go. I'm going to wait patiently. Oh, good. All right. Alana said, love you all. That's so beautiful. You guys are so beautiful. So whilst we're kind of on this topic of aspecting, I'm going to share this a little. So I'm going to kind of break this down one more time for everybody. So we're kind of seeing this full picture again. Sounds good? Let's do this. So we're looking at things big or small that changed our energetic state, that we are still holding on to in our body, in our heart space, that are stopping us from hearing our heart, from connecting to our heart, from living at our full potential, all of that. Then we're looking at the 4 R's, so resentment, regret, revenge, and rejection. We're listing them out from our whole life. And then we're really deeply looking at this year or the 12 months prior to this. And then we're going through either, if there's some that you can just knock on out, cross them off, let them go, hell yeah. If there's some that you mentally, visually just want to feel into to let them go in a click, in a holy instant, we can do that too. Then we're looking at the letter writing process of forgiveness, using the template of to maybe self, to mum, to blah, blah. And then we're telling the story, we're feeling expectations, forgiveness to them, or forgiving that, skipping that piece if you need to, forgiveness to self, letting it go, burning the letter, throwing out the letter, maybe reading the letter out aloud. It's a really powerful step. Maybe it's reading it out loud in nature, reading it out loud to a friend, a coach, someone you trust. You probably don't want to give it to the person, you know, it's not really theirs to carry. But this does bleed really beautifully into this concept of apologizing. So the concept of apologizing with matters of the heart, it's not always fitting. It's just something to consider. So now I'm going to go through some of the deeper steps, and I'm going to include aspecting for you guys too, that we can go away and do. So, apologizing. How does this work and what is the impact it's had on my life? So what's really interesting is one of my favorite stories on this is ages ago, I wrote a forgiveness letter to my mum. And I wrote this letter out and I finished it and I literally felt nothing. I was like, she's annoying, she fucked up, and I still kind of hate her. And I was like, oh, Adriana, brutal. And I've always had this thing with my mum of just being like, why aren't we more connected? Why, do I just feel angry like she would speak? And I would just be like, I'm angry. And I wrote out this letter. I realized a lot of the things, which is powerful in itself, because it's not about it all shifting in an instant, right? Common misconception. But I realized in that moment, I was resenting her for not being present. I was resenting her for not keeping us safe. I was resenting her for never closing out when big, scary things happened in my house as a child. She always just kind of pretended nothing happened. She never spoke about it. I resented her for when we would cry or feel emotion. She just wanted to quickly make it better, which she's still working on. And this is okay. But I realized it all and I was like, well, now I'm almost like more angry. And the letter just didn't really shift anything other than a noticing, which is okay. And then I went to this event, this retreat in Bali, as you do, and I was actually working on it. And I got to sit in on this one session. And I was like, all right, cool. So I sat in on the session and I'm listening, and my whole body just starts shaking. And the session was around apologizing to people. And of course, there's lots of different views on this because obviously we don't want to burden others with our stuff, or sometimes it's not the right time, because if you're bringing it up to them, you're like, why am I bringing it up to them, burdening their life and blah, blah, blah. But sometimes it's this really powerful conversation we get to have with our throat, the power of the throat chakra, right? And we get to communicate and hear each other out and say, I'm so fucking sorry for resenting you for this, this, and that. And I'm so sorry that I acted out X, Y, Z for the years that followed. So the beautiful example of what happened with this scenario is that we had to pick 3 people and do them on the lunch break. And I was like, holy cow. And I was literally shaking, sitting in this room, like, I'm working. Like, this is terrifying. But I wanted to do it. I really wanted to commit to this. So we picked 3 people to apologize to. So 3 people we'd either intentionally hurt or we'd held resentment towards. In this scenario, we were doing them physically, so a phone call or in person. But of course, you could also do it through aspecting, which we're going to talk about later, or in holding their energy field in front of you and speaking to their higher self. That's definitely an option. In this scenario, my mum came to this retreat. I'd bought her a ticket. I was working there. I wanted to see what I do. And I really was trying to let her more into my world. And then funnily enough, we're doing this apology piece. And I'm like, shit, it's my mum. We got outside. And I was like, I'm like, how'd you go? We're chatting. And I'm like, my apology is actually you. She was like, okay. So we sat on the stairs. I remember exactly where we were sitting. And I said to her, exactly what I shared with you guys. I'm so sorry. I resent you for thinking that you didn't do enough, for taking away the fact that you were a human and you were trying to keep 3 little kids alive, and you were trying to do your best by us, and you were trying to keep my dad, who was very emotionally unstable, suicidal, depressed, at bay, at peace. You were trying to stop him from hurting you or us. And the best way you could think of to do that was the way you did it. I don't think you did it the best way, and I'm so sorry, but now I understand what you were trying to do. And she welled up and she hugged me, and she ended up saying, oh my gosh, I didn't realize you were one of my apologies. And I was like, oh, she's like, I thought I had none. I was like, bless you, Mum. And then she grabbed me and she said, I'm so sorry that I kind of forgot about you because you were the strong one, that I was so busy worrying about your brother and your sister, and that you're kind of always just smiling and doing your thing, I forgot how hurt you were. I never took your anxiety or depression seriously, and I'm so sorry. And we hugged, and it was I have goosebumps just talking about it. It was the most freeing thing of my whole entire life. And our relationship is so different now. She's actually coming over after this, and we talk, and I don't get snappy and angry at her. I can communicate things with her. But not only did it change our relationship, I truly believe it shifted our entire lineage. It shifted my relationship with my future daughter who's waiting in the ethers for me. And it was such a strong moment. I love that, Jackie. That's beautiful. Absolutely. So the power of apologizing. At the same time, my second person was my ex-boyfriend, and my third person was someone I took out revenge on. And they were really powerful healing conversations. So I want you to also write down 3 people for this apology that you could forgive, that you could either speak to, or if that doesn't feel good, aspecting with them, calling in their higher selves and having powerful conversations. Because there's so many ways we get to do this work. And remember, I'm giving you the letter as a really solid, important starting point. And then we're seeing the lists, the letting go, the speaking about it, the apologies. And we're starting to see how this gets really layered and beautiful, because it's not one thing that fits everything. The heart is a complex place, but it's where our whole existence lies. And I want to live from there as much as I can in this lifetime. What's really interesting is when we go through this process, and some of you may be thinking this or feeling this, there's really tricky things to let go of. There's some things that feel almost impossible. So you might be thinking of things like abuse, sexual assault, someone really hurting you or someone in your family, these big, unexcusable things. And I do really want to touch on today the energy around things like especially sexual assault for both men and women. And remembering that in this piece, when we're looking at those things, it's not about making what they did right and making what you did even minutely close to being wrong. Right? It's not about that. It's about, again, we're coming back to the story I shared at the very beginning. How do we forgive yourself, and how do we let them go? Because we are all one. The greatest question to ask yourself in this space is, where do I still blame myself? This is a really powerful question with this space of sexual assault, because at the end of the day, what we are holding is blame. I stayed in the room too long. I shouldn't have got so drunk. Elise, triggered. Sit with it, breathe. Absolutely. This stuff is really, it's deep. It sits really in our bodies, in our wombs. And again, we're not making this right. We're sending it love, and we're finding out, where do I blame myself? I know for me personally, I blamed myself for being in the room. For 2 years, I was like, I just shouldn't have been in the room. Shouldn't have been in the room. I shouldn't have been in the room. I was so silly for staying in the room. That wasn't on me. But when I could release myself from that and be like, it's okay. I made a decision. I stayed in the room, and I forgive myself for that. That set me more free from the scenario than trying to understand why he did what he did, because it's never okay. Rachel shared, even though I've done this before, so much is coming out for me. That's beautiful, Rachel. And we got you. We're with you. And this is the thing, each time we do this, we get to go deeper. So if it's the first time, the second, the third, we get to keep getting curious. And imagine the layers we are peeling off each time, to freedom, to oneness, to love, to connectedness. All these words that we wrote at the beginning of this call, this is where we find them. Otherwise, they're just these words that get thrown around. And there's so much power in this and in everything we're going to do. And some parts will resonate more, some parts will resonate less, and that's okay. And I always like to bring this piece up because it feels almost an impossible one. And I get that. I've been there. So it's really important that we speak into this blame and we have a real feel and look into that. And compassion, remember, compassion is to be with. That's all. To be honest company. That's all. So sit with that, guys. Write out anything that's coming up that you need to go back to. Know that you are safe and that you are loved and that it is okay to go back into these things when it feels good to you, or maybe you need to reach out for support. Any option is perfect. And remember, it's all a process. The first time I wrote the letter around sexual assault, I wasn't like, okay, done. I'm okay with this now. It was a process. It was a process of being like, I didn't realize I blamed myself there. I didn't realize that created that effect and that ripple and that ripple. Wow, okay, cool. I didn't realize that it was in my lineage and in my womb. I didn't realize that maybe I need to get some deeper bodywork healing, whatever it is that feels true to you. Cool. I love you guys. You guys are doing so beautifully. I'm so proud. So as we move through that, remember we're doing this on everything. Parents, these things, eating disorders, not committing to stuff in our businesses, our careers, our lives, wherever it is. Because what happens is, I'm going to say it again, as we clear away all the shit, as we clear away all the noise, we have no option but to come back to our heart's whispers. And then our heart's whispering to us, I really want to move to Mexico. I don't know. I had a client who really wants to move to Mexico. And I'm like, just do it, babe. But we get to start hearing these whispers. I really want to change careers. I really want to move to this place or that place. I really want to be with this person. And we get to come back to our whispers. So, of course, we want to look at aspecting. This is such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful tool. So beautiful, and works perfectly in this space of forgiveness, works perfectly and beautifully in this space of resentment. So I'm going to explain how this works. Bear with me, take a bit of notes. It's something that might feel a little strange at the beginning, but I promise you, if you allow yourself to just try it, as Alana is going to do, and share with me when she's done. I got you. And we're going to try it and just allow it. It feels really strange at the beginning. And I'm going to explain why, and then I'm going to explain what you can do. So what I want you to think about is the role that you're playing out. So Alana shared the role of the victim. I shared the role of the manipulator. I said there was, I mentioned some other ones, the people pleaser, maybe the drama queen, maybe so many. Oh my God, there's just so many running through my brain. But any role you are playing out in that scenario. So maybe start to think of them or write them out. Just notice what's coming up. Sometimes it feels pretty icky to realize I played this role of the manipulator. Sometimes didn't feel nice at all. I wasn't like, oh, that's cool. That's a cool role to play. I must be a great human. But it's just allowing it. Okay, interesting. So Then we get to call. So for aspecting, what I want to make sure you're doing with this is that it's all tying back to releasing this space of our hearts, all tying back to forgiveness. It's all tying back to resentment, to clear this space, this shadow in our heart space, in our bodies. So get 2 pillows out when you do this in your own time. The whole process might take 10 minutes. You know, for me, it's more of like a 45-minute process. So just keep that in mind. 2 pillows. You sit on 1 pillow, and then you call in the energy of your role, this inner role that's playing out. The rebel, the people pleaser, the manipulator, the victim, right? That role drops in. Or if you're doing it with somebody else, you can call in their higher self, right? But right now we're talking about this of the roles. The blamer, great one. Yeah, guys, if you guys want to drop in what you wrote, because I find that really helps other people see what theirs might be. So if you have one that you want to pop in, Alana, me too. Yeah, so helpful. So you call in that role, you call in that energy, and you start noticing what your body wants to do. Maybe you want to curl up in a little ball. Maybe you want to start crying. Maybe you need to emotionally release. Maybe you just want to be mute and say nothing. That's what I do. That's the kind of place I fall into. Each is okay. Take your time here. So then we can start, when we're ready, not before, start speaking to that role. However you want. You make me do this and it's frustrating. I don't understand why you come through like this. Be whatever you need to be, speaking to that role. I'm so tired of being the victim, whatever is coming up for you. Then swap pillows when it feels good to you and become the role. This is where it gets interesting. I want you to take note of, how does your physiology shift? Do you sit taller? Are you more forward? What's going on? Because you're becoming that role. And then speak back to you. For me, I learned the role of a manipulator because I needed it to stay safe from my dad. He was so beautiful and he meant so well, but he was so angry. So if I could manipulate him a little, we could get along, and it worked really well. And it was a matter of life or death for me. Felt like it. So when my role shared this back with me, my role literally said, we did this to keep you alive. We need to keep doing this. Let it speak. Sit back over. It's important you move pillows back over to yourself and speak back like you're having a conversation. Share what's coming up for you. Share what you realize. You might notice we're going back and forth until the convo is done. Maybe it's 2 times, maybe it's 3 times, no right or wrong. Role speaks again, has a chat. How to round this up, though, is really important. I want you to make an agreement with this role. Because what happens now is when it bubbles to the surface of being a manipulator, I can see it. And I can be like, oh, what's the agreement we made? That. Got it. Cool. So it's really important that you're making some type of agreement, because none of our inner roles are bad. We all know there's no such thing as good or bad, right? One just is. And it probably has a place sometimes, or there's something we can learn from it. So what is an agreement you can make with that role? A powerful, powerful agreement. And make that agreement with each other. Understand it, understand where it came from, why it keeps showing up, where it keeps showing up. Then feel into, how could we make this work? How could we run this life together? Because this inner part of me, I'll honor it. You can do this with your masculine and feminine. You can literally do this with anything. And then release, cut that cord. Or if that doesn't feel good, cutting can be a little harsh with an inner role. Integrate with it. So this means maybe you lay palms facing up, Shavasana. Maybe you integrate. I'm a fetal position cuddler. Maybe you want to grab the pillow and hold it to your heart space. Maybe you want to lay with your heart space open in integration. Integration, maybe you just want to cry. Maybe you heard something from your inner child, your little girl or boy, and just lay in that integration phase. Try to do it for up to 10 minutes, but whatever feels good to you. And remembering this all comes back to ourselves. It all comes back to this radical responsibility with self. It all comes back to this connection to our heart space. It all comes back to the way we feel, see the world, and the way we want to see it moving forward. It's getting curious about our mirrors, our triggers. It's getting really curious to what feels like the truth to us, to what we've made things mean, to what we're holding on to what freedom looks like to us. And as we really lean into this, we can start to get connected back to self. We can come and be one with all of those around us. We can let people in. We can let ourselves in. Alice just shared the people pleaser, because childhood turbulence, need for peace and safety within our relationships. The people pleaser, I would have to say, is one of the most common one I hear around clients. So it's a perfect one to do this aspecting with and get to know her and set some boundaries, guys, some really solid boundaries. Could you be more than one? Absolutely. Hell to the yes. I was like a bazillion. There was just some that showed more than others, and some that I noticed were affecting my current life more than others. The responsible one, Alex, I love that. And looking at where is that coming from? Where did I need to be that? Most likely from a really young age. Who did I need to be that for? My siblings? Was it my parents? They're things to think about. So guys, with about 5 minutes to go, I'd love for you guys to share any questions, how you're feeling, the roles that are coming up, anything you learned around resentment. Just reading a few others. Yeah, Alex shared the need to be perfect. Yeah, perfectionist is a great one. Alana said the savior. Yes, I love that one. The savior. Massive role we play. Massive, massive, massive. So if you do have any questions and you don't feel like sharing them, you can always make yourself private, or you can ask me later, no problem. And I just want you guys to notice what's coming up and just sit with it. It might feel a little uncomfortable. Only lean in as far as feels good to you. And remember, this is a process, and it's a really beautiful one if we allow it to be. I'd love everyone to share their one last thing, either your biggest takeaway or your biggest learning. Your biggest takeaway or your biggest learning. It could be just a statement. It could be this thing. It could be vague. It could be detailed. So your biggest takeaway from today or your biggest learning. We always do this. I always do this with my groups because I find that it's so interesting to see what other people connected to. And it's so interesting to be like, yes, I needed that bit too. I kind of forgot that bit. So as you write those in, I will share them and read some of them out. And I'm so proud of you guys for being here. I've loved this so much. Amanda shared, the heart doesn't control, it allows. So what am I trying to control? Yes, Amanda. Amanda? Did I say Amanda before? Yes. And this is the thing, we get clues all the time, right? So a clue might be, my heart is trying to control this situation. Okay, then that can't be my heart. I feel scared, so that can't be my heart. However, if it's feeling flow and peace and ease and faith and hope, that's probably more likely my heart. And I always know, and I think I'm coming from my heart. And then I check in and I'm like, oh, girl, that's your ego. She likes the stage, my good old ego. Alex shared, recognizing the roles I play, the victim, the blamer. It's always everyone else's fault, not mine. Alex, that is a huge thing to realize and share. Huge. Huge, huge, huge. Recognizing our roles and forgiving ourselves for those roles, creating the boundaries with those roles, is one of the most powerful things I did this year. This is work I just did this year. And I don't give anything I don't do. So I've done this and done this and done this. I promise. I've been there with you guys. Alana shared, I can relate to that so much, Alex. Tessa, I'm the same as Alex. I play so many roles and can now work towards this. I love that. And Tessa, as well, just think about, you know, the key ones you're noticing and things that you're holding resentment towards right now that can really help kind of refine this. So what happens is I give people this work and they're like, there was so much, so I didn't do anything. I just want you guys to think of like 1 or 2 in each spot. 1 or 2 resentments to look at, 1 or 2 forgiveness, 1 or 2 apologies, if that's what it is to you. Or maybe some of it isn't for you right now. Be mindful of avoidance, heart, head, fear. Alana also shared, I learned about asking my heart space, where or what the pain I'm feeling, and seeing what comes up. Shine the light in the darkness. Sign the line? No, I know what you mean. And that's so beautiful, because what I often notice is in this space, it's really easy to forget to actually ask our bodies. So for example, my boyfriend and I were talking about something the other night, and we were kind of on different pages with it, and we're like always on exactly the same page. I don't know what planet he came from, but we were on different pages with it, and I closed. I completely was just like, oh gosh, I'm retracting. And I stopped and I actually checked into my heart and I said, what is this? What is it? Simple question. And then I looked at him and I said, oh, I'm feeling like I've done something wrong. And I really don't cope when I've done something wrong. I feel very scared. I feel like someone's going to emotionally abuse me, as I was as a child. And I started to cry as I shared that. But there was so much power in actually tapping into this little spot and being like, oh, that's what it is. Okay, shit. And then I shared it and it transmuted instantly, because what is in the light cannot stay. And he hugged me and he held me and he was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that was coming out for you. And he knows so much about my past. I was like, okay, I see that. And it was this really beautiful moment. Alice shared, coming back to the heart. Yep. That's what it's all about. And this is what this beautiful segment is about, that you guys get to explore the power of being the observer, to consciously see how I act, asking, where does that come from? What am I holding on to, and letting it go. Hell yes. You guys are the best students. I love this so much. Thank you all so much for being here. I am so excited to see how your whole weekend goes. You're all beautiful and you are doing the work for yourself, for the whole collective, as would make sense with where we are. And thank you again for being here and listening to me talk. I hope you got so much out of this. I love you. I honor absolutely everything, and thank you again, guys.
Whoa, give some spirit hands for Adriana. Thank you so much. It's so weird doing that, but you know, we can't hear you guys clap, but that was incredible. We went deep. How deep? Heart deep. Someone shouted balls deep. I seen that. Come on, guys. It's Saturday morning. Heart deep. We went heart deep with our heart set section. Adriana, thank you so much. That is always a beautiful process. It's so powerful. You know, the few notes that I took there were, you know, aspecting, cutting the cords, integrating, forgiveness. And most of the time it falls back onto us. Now, when we go back to that analogy at the start of, you know, when we have our heart and we think it's all external, we're missing kind of the biggest part of it, which is the internal of that relationship with self. That how can we build, well, how can we give ourselves that forgiveness? We think it's always to someone else, but that's also kind of people pleasing, going, I'm sorry, I forgive. What about ourselves? We come number one. And if we can fill that cup, we build the trust, which builds a connection, which then expands the love within us. So thank you so much, Adriana. Again, incredible session. And thank you so much for your time, energy, and value, and sharing with all of us. So much value in there.